Before I hit the road today here in the States, I just wanted to say a few things on the sentencing of Alex Belfield, having watched the noisy mob have their say for the last 24 hours or so. And bear in mind, 10 days ago, I was on stage with Alex Belfield at his show in Blackpool at the end of the North Pier. So things have moved pretty quickly since then. Firstly, I don't want to preface anything I say with some sort of excuse that gets me out of having this opinion and stops you attacking me. So I don't need to say, I think Alex Belfield is a twat, but, or I might not agree with what Alex Belfield says, but, or I think he might be a bit shady, but. I don't have to do that because I don't mind what your opinion is, and I don't mind if you come and attack me for mine, because frankly that says more about you than it does about me. The second thing I think that's important, and that I've known for well over a decade, is that the law is not the law. And that's a very disheartening thing. It is exactly like democracy. People need to believe in democracy, otherwise what say do they have? What does it matter? How can they be controlled? And people need to believe in the law because they want to. You want to believe that if something happens to you or an injustice is done to you, the law will be there. Well, the law's the law, and it's not. The law is whatever one man's interpretation is of it on the day. It's why if you go to a lawyer and ask for an opinion, you only get that. You can only get a view. You can't get an answer. It's the most frustrating thing there ever is, but that in itself indicates the law is not the law. And the man or woman deciding what the law is on that day knows which direction will be most beneficial for them, or to the people that pay them, or to other clients they may have, or for future engagements. The law is not the law. The other thing, the third thing, is that legal professionals are not there in your best interest, no matter what they say. For them, and I've watched them and spoken to them personally about this, the law is a game. It's like intellectually off-piste skiing. It's not about what's right or wrong, it's about who can win. What areas of the law can you call on to manipulate in order for your client to win, or your firm, rather, to score a win? And that's what actually any solicitor or law professional, it seems to me in my experience, is engaged in. It's some sort of machismo about who's cleverer than the other person. And no matter what you think someone's on your side. No, they're on their side. And I think that's always been true. Another important point that's being missed by everybody is that comparisons to other sentencing is not actually helpful. So you can say, oh yes, but this BBC guy who was looking at pictures of young children, he got off with a suspended sentence. And you can keep saying that until you're blue in the face. It makes no odds. You cannot go to any appeal or whatever saying, oh yes, but this woman who went over to fight for this thing and talked about beheading, she gets an appeal and she gets to maybe come back to the country and she gets all of her legal things funded for her. It matters not. These matters are separate and distinct. So it doesn't matter if to you that rationally there is a leniency here but an over harsh treatment there. They all stand in isolation. You cannot rationalize with the irrational. And the law is not a rational thing. It's done on the feelings of a certain individual on a particular day. I've walked other friends to court. A gentleman from Luton, for example, that you will know well. I walked him to court on the day we knew he was going to prison, despite the fact that no one in the history of contempt of court had ever been sent inside. We knew that he would be walking down those steps and he wouldn't be coming back, which is why I made that walk with him, to show what I know personally about the law and its judgments. The other thing I wanted to say, really, I guess the law, therefore, and this idea that you can appeal to it because it's rational, it's a fabrication of rationality, right? So there's a judgment, and it calls on this by this, and this by this, and it calls on this referencing this, and we're cross-referencing that. And because of this, we're giving this amount of time, and because of that, we're taking this amount of time off. It's like theatre. It's an illusion. But whatever happens, a bit like when you have to get your car fixed, it's always going to cost more than 100 quid. It doesn't matter what the illusion of rationality is. And I've watched this firsthand. The illusion of a sentencing being a rational event. It's a play. I could act it if I was called on to do so. The last couple of things I wanted to say, well, there's three. The mob loves to see someone fail. It's a worst human instinct that one might perceive one is more successful because someone else is doing worse. It harks back to the days of French people gathering around with their knitting to see other people being beheaded, or the Puritans gathering to throw whatever, cow dung at someone in the stocks. The mob enjoys failure in others. It makes them feel better, it makes them feel more successful, it makes them believe they're part of the righteous, because it's not happening to them. And it's not until you're someone like myself who's been close to all this happening personally that you actually understand what the feeling of this is like and why the mob are absolutely deluded if they think it makes them more successful, that they're not Alex Belfield on that day. I wanted to say that the big lesson from this whole affair has been that today in the UK, you can be put in prison for 5 years, 5.5 years, because of people's feelings. That's new case law. And if you think that doesn't apply to you, you're wrong. And I particularly know this because new law was invented just for me over a tweet that was deleted, that was apologised for, that was tried to make amends for. I was done by the law for causing serious harm online for a tweet that was deleted and apologised for. And I went all the way to court with this because I didn't want this to be the precedent. I lost everything because I believe that you can't say that someone's caused serious harm unless you can show it, unless you can prove it. But the new law, made especially for me, said no, that's not the case. Someone just has to feel it. And that's precisely what's gone on with Alex now. This new law says it's someone's feelings. If someone feels that they were a victim, talks enough about being a victim, explains how they were this close to this happening to them, that's enough for you to be thrown into prison. And if you can't see that that's a dark day for the UK, if you can't see that it's a dark day when someone can be in prison for 5.5 years, despite being actually a really shit stalker. If I'm going to be stalked, I want someone coming up and licking my shower curtain. I want someone coming up and thrusting their genitals through my letterbox. I want someone covered in baby oil, rubbing themselves down my conservatory window. If you're going to stalk me, do it like the two people who came to chop off my head. Practice, have that weapon in your home. Have the shot dummy that you practice beheading me on. Really go for it. Whereas Mr. Belfield never actually left his home. And finally, and thank you for staying with me for this, because you don't have to agree. You've been kind enough to listen to my opinion, and it's worth nothing, frankly. People talk about an appeal, but you're appealing to the people who made this decision because it was convenient for them. I was not allowed to appeal my case, that you can only cause serious harm if you can prove serious harm. I was not even allowed to appeal it. And the cost of me trying to not have this as precedent was everything I ever owned. But what I do know for certain, apart from all these truths that I've just told you, I know for certain that the gentleman from Luton that I walked to prison, I stood by him, visited him in prison, spoke kindly with the governor, who was a great supporter, and have remained in contact to this day and will continue my support out of basic humanity. My support for the gentleman from Luton has continued out of that humanity, and that will be true for Mr. Belfield as well. My fear is that when you have nothing left to lose, that you also make a decision that life isn't worth continuing. And so it will be my purpose to help keep the man alive and to assist him on the other side of this whenever that may be. So those are my quiet thoughts on this after the mob has finished salivating and licking its lips at another human being's demise.